with the exception of drugs compounded in pharmacies, each drug sold in the pharmaceutical drug sold in the United States and requires a careful review by the Food and Drug Administration before that drug can be sold in the United States. We call that the FDA gold standard. There are 4.4 billion prescriptions a year. Most of us, when we go into our local pharmacy or the doctor's office, don't really worry about the safety of those prescriptions because we rely on the FDA gold standard. Sometimes when the cost of drugs comes up, there are proposals that we should import drugs from other countries and sidestep the careful FDA review and approval of each drug sold in the United States. I'd like to ask each of you, starting with Mr. Monegan and then going across, whether you agree that we should allow drugs approved by other countries to be sold in the United States without careful review and approval of each drug by the Food and Drug Administration. Mr. Monegan?
The short answer is absolutely not. While APHA appreciates congressional efforts to address patients' medication costs, we don't believe importation is a solution to the complex issue of drug pricing. Broadened importation of non-FDA approved meds threatens patient safety, directly conflicts with congressional efforts to increase the integrity and security of the supply chain and the Drug Supply Chain Security Act, and disrupts continuity of care and value-based payment and delivery. We're concerned that savings, if any, will be short-term and importation will instead result in long-term costs to patients.
Thank you. Mr. Merritt?
I'll give the short answer. We'd oppose that.
Thank you, Mr. Merritt. Ms. Gallinal?
We would absolutely oppose importation as it would threaten patient safety in this country. We have done a lot of work on the Drug Supply Chain Security Act. We're currently in the implementation phase 1 of that law. And one of the things that it requires is serialized product by all manufacturers in this country. There is no global standard for serialization currently. It also involves data exchange for each transaction that happens from the manufacturer to distributor to pharmacy by 2023 at the unit level. There is also no global standard for that data exchange. We've done a lot of work to try and protect the U.S. supply chain and make it as safe as possible. And we don't think that allowing foreign imports will do anything to keep that level of security.
Senator Collins has returned, and I'm going to turn the chair over to her, but I'd like for Mr. Davis and Ms. Riley to answer my question about drug importation.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, briefly, we share the concern that you've heard from the other witnesses here today relative to safety. The Secretary of Health and Human Services has the opportunity to certify and legalize importation if they determine, whether it's a Republican or Democratic health official, that it's safe and cost effective. No one's been willing to do that. I will tell you also there's an additional element related to generics from a practical perspective, which is far and away as a market basket. Generics are less expensive in the U.S. market than they are in major developed markets across the world. So it would beg the question, why would you want to be importing something that's more expensive to begin with?
Ms. Riley?
I would just add on to what my panelists have said previously, but opening our borders to potentially counterfeit medicines risks the health and safety of Americans. Counterfeiting medicines is a low penalty, low risk enterprise, and if we open the borders, we are subjecting Americans to unsafe medicine. So we adamantly oppose.